Hi, my name's Grant and welcome to this, my first ever attempt at a YouTube video. I really wanted to share details of my journey last year where I was lucky enough to take 26 days covering 3,800 odd miles, travelling through France, Spain, Portugal, then back up into Spain. Being relatively new to biking, I only passed my test in 2022, aged 56. This was just my third big trip, and true to form, it didn't all go entirely to plan. About 1,200 miles into the journey, having just ridden through the Pyrenees, my wheel bearings actually went just outside of Pamplona, so I called on the breakdown assistance. That was closely followed by a catalogue of errors over about the next 36 hours. I lost my laptop, I then lost my document case which contained my V5 registration document and my passport. But it could have been a whole lot worse. At least I'm still here to actually tell the tale. But all's well that ends well. On a hire bike, I then picked up my partner from Bilbao and we spent 9 wonderful days riding around the Picos, back to Pamplona to pick up my bike, and then across and down to Madrid. Rose actually flew back, as I say, 9 days later, and I continued my onward journey through northwest Spain onto Santander and then caught the ferry back to Portsmouth. Now I think there's something for just about everybody in the forthcoming clips, but there again I must confess to being slightly biased. There's the coastal roads, so the twisting coastal paths which actually run from France across into Spain. There's the iconic Pyrenees, the Picos de Europa including Riano and the Potes Triangle, a mountain range heading down just north of Madrid, as well as the Douro Valley in Portugal. There's also the mountain range in northwest Spain, and again back to coastal roads and the coastal village of Luarco. It really has been an absolute pleasure to take this trip. I really do feel privileged being able to do so, and I truly hope that you actually enjoyed the footage. I've tried to actually put in markers wherever possible, but obviously it's not going to cover everything. So anyway, I hope you enjoy. The weather forecast wasn't that great, but day one had finally arrived and I was ready to start my journey. Now, fortunately, I only live about 20 minutes away from Portsmouth ferry terminal, so arrived with plenty of time and was soon actually on board the ferry. The crossing was only 6 hours, daytime crossing, which I chose deliberately to avoid any overnight cabin costs. And to be honest, it was nice just to actually set onto French soil. The crossing itself was pretty smooth, quite a few bikers actually on board. On arrival, the temperatures were up into double figures, about 10-11 degrees, so not particularly great. However, I was hoping for much warmer climates as I actually headed further down south. Having been up since about 4 AM, this was all about reaching my first night's destination, which was actually in Le Mans. So it was really a case of just taking the most direct route possible. inevitably, taking direct routes also means passing through toll booths. Fortunately, as the journey progressed down through France, I did become slightly slicker with the whole operation, retrieving the ticket, stowing it safely, and obviously paying for it at the other end. Purely for ease, I'd actually booked my first night's accommodation whilst I was back in the UK, and in the knowledge that it was literally going to be just a one-night stop. I knew I was going to be tired. I must admit, I ended up just booking on price, as well as hopefully comfort. Now, when I actually pulled up, it really didn't look that promising. And you can probably see from my face, I was a little bit concerned about the parking situation. Not particularly secure where I was, so it was out to Google Maps and just try and find some secure parking, which fortunately was about 100 yards down the road. I really was pleasantly surprised when I got inside. The apartment was absolutely superb, self-catering obviously, just being the apartment, everything you required in there. Also within easy walking distance of the old town in Le Mans, full of cobbled streets, restaurants, bars. Being so tired, I elected to simply grab myself a takeaway, kebab and chips. That was enough for me. Back to the apartment and just get my head down, ready to crack on for the following journey. Well, the secure parking was actually located probably about 200 yards from the front of the apartment, so ideal location, and yeah, did exactly what it said on the tin. Now, to be honest, I really can't recommend this place highly enough just for a one-night stopover. Despite the appearance from the outside, inside it's really quite well appointed, very nice, got all the amenities that you'd actually require, so kettle, etc., washing machine, and also within easy walking distance of the old town where I actually spent last night briefly. Today is actually the first full day riding in France, and although I aim to get down to the Mediterranean coast really as soon as possible and start enjoying the journey along the coast and back up into Spain, I did actually set the sat-nav avoiding motorways. Claremont was showing about 5.5–6 hour ride, but fortunately where I'd not booked anything for the forthcoming night in Claremont, I really had no set plans. If I decided to stop earlier, not a problem. The good old booking.com, I'd just find local accommodation. But riding through this particular part of France, came across some nice villages, roads were really quiet, and yeah, just really enjoyed the ride. lovely as the French countryside actually is, it was nice to actually come across this place, Chartres-sur-Loire, however it's pronounced. However, bit of a confession, it's only actually looking back at this footage and plotting it on the map, also doing a bit more investigation, that I realised had I've gone straight down there, then apparently it turns into a really nice village, actually on the river itself. So this winging it lark doesn't always work out, but yeah, just a bit more pre-planning perhaps in the future perhaps would have made for a nice coffee stop, but hey, never mind. Being about 4 hours into the journey at this point, I decided to actually pull over and just have a rethink. If I'm honest, I've just about had enough of the French countryside for the day, and Claremont, had I've stayed with the avoid motorway option, was still going to be about 2 hours away. So off with the avoid motorways and crack on down to Claremont. Now, despite having travelled the motorway probably for about the last 50 miles, the journey actually took me around about 5.5 hours, which, to be honest, is long enough for me on a day on the bike. Love it to bits, but after 5.5 hours, I'm ready to park up. The hotel was okay. Wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. Only cost £50 a night, so very reasonable, but lots of exposed pipe work. The room I was in, the walls were actually covered with OSB board and not particularly aesthetically pleasing. I discovered the only way to turn on the telly was by putting on the side light and also the fan in the bathroom. Then you get power to the telly. Claremont, however, was a fantastic place, not what I expected. I googled it and it actually looked quite industrial, but the old town part is really quite quaint. Again, lots of churches, bars, restaurants. I actually found a pizza place in the end, so played it safe, had a pizza, got my head down, and was ready then the following morning to head off to the Med and the south coast. Well, I woke in Claremont on day 3 to some beautiful clear skies, and temperature was showing around about 22 at the time. The secure parking was within easy walk from the hotel itself, and despite my reservations, I actually really slept quite well. I also enjoyed the buffet style breakfast. That was included in the £50 a night room rates. Now, despite the journey ahead being mainly motorway, I was just excited to get back out on the open road and head down to the Mediterranean coast. As I joined the motorway, my sat-nav gleefully announced stay on the road for 297 kilometres. However, I shouldn't have worried. These aren't UK roads, these are French roads, and some of the scenery just on the motorways alone was absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, it does get slightly interrupted and I do end up losing some of the footage. As I say, the journey itself really didn't disappoint, and although I was unable to show all of it, you get an idea of just how fantastic some of these roads are. Particularly for me, this is where the bike came into its own. The 1600cc engine on the BMW, popped it into cruise mode, and it really was a joy. Now, being about 3 hours into today's ride, and the temperatures now up in the late 20s, it was time to actually find a stop just for coffee or water. So I simply pulled off the motorway, not really knowing where I was at all, and expecting to find another service station, albeit one of the sort of posh French ones. But yeah, I really couldn't believe my luck as I actually pulled in and glanced off to the right to actually see an amazing viaduct. Quite incredible. Plenty of fluids on board. I actually left that spot, unfortunately to be caught by a kamikaze pilot actually coming in the opposite direction. This unfortunately then, funny as it was, actually went on for, oh goodness me, must have been about 20 odd miles. Missed out some of the sort of decent footage, but hey, you know, it's all down to experience. Some things you just simply can't prepare for, and this was one of those such moments. Claremont earlier in the day at about 22 degrees. It was now up to 32 as I finally reached the coast and got my first glimpse of the sea. For me, this is where the thing really got real. I was aiming for the Mediterranean coast and I'd actually found it. Now, what I'd actually done throughout my journey was actually kept a daily diary, albeit a lot of it was actually posted on my Facebook page. Certainly wasn't intended to create a YouTube video, so obviously I'm doing this retrospectively, but as I say, I kept daily notes, hence the reason I'm able to actually start quoting temperatures. But hey, watching this footage, it's all coming back. Having reached the end of my trip on that beautifully manicured motorway, it was time to pay the toll. I really can't remember exactly how much it was, but I'm pretty sure it was north of 50 euros. But would I do it again? Hell yeah. So determined was I to actually reach the Mediterranean coast by the end of the day. I'd actually booked my accommodation whilst I was back in Claremont at breakfast, so wasn't quite sure what to expect. If anything, it was actually slightly cheaper than the Claremont hotel. So yeah, I was vaguely optimistic but wasn't holding my breath. Having arrived here though, I mean, I literally could smell the sea air. As I rode into the town itself, that holiday vibe was there. It's obviously a French holiday destination and the streets themselves incredibly clean, but the temperatures, I think also the relief, having actually driven for what was in the end just shy of about 500 kilometres. Just really started to hit home, but I was still excited about what was to come. Chance to actually explore this coastal town. Well, I found parking directly opposite the hotel, not exactly secure, but hey. And having just double checked, the apartment for the night actually worked out at £45. Fortunately for me, had some wonderful air conditioning. A absolute must, as I say, temperatures were up around about 32, 33 degrees. First thing I did was showered, and I must admit I slept for probably about an hour and a half before venturing out. Now, in one direction, it really was typical tourism. Lots of market stalls, any designer watch you wanted for under a tenner. However, I decided to opt and walk in the opposite direction. Beautiful clear beaches. Really quiet. You could see part of the town as it actually used to be. With the mountain range in the background, I'd finally reached the Mediterranean, and I was just so happy and equally excited about what was still to come. Episode 2 sees me leave France and cross over into Spain, riding some incredible winding roads, some really tight bends, steep inclines and equally impressive descents into some of the coastal villages. With my love of the sea, for me this is probably one of my most enjoyable rides of the trip in its entirety, and probably the most difficult to edit. So I hope you'll join me for episode 2, the Coast Road Crossing.